parameters that we want to make exposed. And let's just say we wanted to make this C a little bit stronger. You could set the strength to 1 or 2 or anything that you want. So I'll put that back to 0.5 and I can have access to that. If I wanted to have something like a noise controller or any sort of script controller, expression controller, or anything like that controlling any of these, then I could very well do that as well. So that's another powerful feature of the composite nodes and allowing you to start to create different tools that you can use in Max. Okay, so what I want to do now is just hop back to that shader we were playing with before. So I'm going to go into this layer and I'm going to hide this C setup and unhide our little shader ball. And then we're going to go back in here and let me just activate this active shade again. Okay, so what I want to look at now is taking this entire skin shader and making it a composite node and then turning it into a template that we can use later. So I'm going to call this skin. And then I'm going to hop in and decide a couple of things that I might want to make exposed. So definitely in this color map, at the end, I've built this so that I can go into color 1 and adjust it, and it will propagate down the color corrects into this cell shader. And that way I only have to adjust this one parameter. So I want to make that a composite input for sure. And then I'll just pick something simple like our glossiness as a composite input and specular level as a composite input, because those are two things that I would frequently use when I'm adjusting this skin. And if I go back to the main level here, you'll see that the color is there as well as the glossiness and the specular level for my little skin composite node. So now, just as I did with the C, I can go in and quickly adjust, going from a regular skin color to something that is maybe a little bit more reptilian or alien. So I'll just change that to green and bring up the specular level quite a bit and maybe bring down the glossiness. Okay, so now I have something that's a little bit more like a lizard skin or something like that. Now, if I wanted to use this setup over and over, I can easily do that by creating a composite template. So what I'm going to do is just go over to palettes, open up my composite templates rollout, and drag this in. So now I have this skin template that's made up of all those different nodes that I created and has just these parameters exposed that I know I'll use most frequently. And this right here is saved on the hard drive in a configurable directory. So I can move this from machine to machine, or I can put this up on the network, or whatever I want, so that whenever I open my Mac session, I have these composite templates that I can use. That could be materials, as you see here, or setups like we did with the C-comp, or we'll do another one with particles in a moment. So let's just detach this from here, and actually we'll remove all this stuff and close out of here. So let's just create another object. We'll make a teapot, and I'll just hide that sphere for right now. And I'm going to grab that teapot and just pop it into this view. So now I have my teapot here. I can drag out my skin template and simply pipe that material into that object. So now when I go to render, you can see that that has that material, and if I wish I can adjust it back to something more in the yellow range and render that out. So this is a really great use of templates, and you can build your entire library of things that you might do on a frequent basis. Now with materials this is great, but with other objects these are things that you might have to script or build tools for, and you can actually build your own tools here in Zookeeper. So let's take a look at building a tool that you might use all the time. I'm just going to go to the layers, hide this layer, and I'm going to unhide my little wisp layer here. So if I zoom out, what you'll see is I have this simple particle cloud and a drag and a wind space warp that are connected to it. And when I'm creating some particles, this is something I might create fairly frequently. Basically, just to set up with some kind of wispy particles, okay? Usually, this might be something that if I was doing some effect setups, I would create multiple times. And I would set my drag to parameters that I like with it. I would set my wind to a nice turbulence, and I would bind them to a particle system that I wanted them to be associated with. In Zookeeper, just like the C setup, you can make a custom tool to do this for you every time instead of having to set that up. So I'm just going to go into the Wisps tab, and you'll see that this is set up really simply. We have our particle cloud Here's the modifier stack for it, which simply has our wind and our drag binding, which has the wind and the drag object. So I can take all of this, excluding the particle cloud object, and group to a composite template. So now I have my base object, and I'll just kind of scrub through there, okay? And here are my particles. I'm just going to name this Wisp for my template, and then I'm going to drag this over into templates. So now what I've created is an entire setup with my drag, my wind, and an input for the type of particle system that I want as a template. And the great thing about this is, with materials it creates all the inside materials, but with objects, modifiers, custom rigs that you might make, it'll make all of those interior objects like the wind and the drag or other controller objects that you make, whatever happens to be inside this, when you create that template, Zookeeper will make. So let's just remove this stuff for right now. And actually I'm going to remove both of those. And let's go in. I should have a hidden P-array here. I'm going to drag that out, and you can see that my torus knot is what is creating particles for that. So I'll just drag out my Wisp template, and you can see in the scene that it's created the wind as well as the drag with the parameters that I set for it. I can simply drag out the base object of this P-array and pipe that into the base object of the Wisp. And once I've done that, I have all those parameters that I set up before applied to that new particle system. So this can be a real fast and effective way to create different setups that you might do all the time in Max, or rigs that you want to just pass on to other junior animators that are in your group where they just need to adjust a couple of different things instead of an entire workflow. So to wrap up, you can use composite nodes in Zookeeper to simplify your workflow by taking multiple nodes and compositing them down into one. You can also go inside that node and expose different parameters to be available at the surface level of the composite node so that you can only have 2 or 3 parameters to adjust and not have to continually go into a multiple node situation. Lastly, you can take those composites and make composite templates out of them. So whether it's a material that you might make or a particle setup or even a custom rig, you can create tools that are going to help you with everyday tasks that you might do. So hopefully this shows you the power of using composites in Zookeeper, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.